Hello students, today we are going to talk about a topic called as workplace counseling. Generally, people face many kind of problems at workplace, and companies or organizations are coming up with many innovative techniques to reduce these problems and help employees. Now, one such innovative techniques is known as workplace counseling. The main objective of workplace counseling is basically to reduce the stress, pressure of the employees and provide them a stress-free environment so that they can work very efficiently. Basically, counseling is a process of helping an individual by developing a mutual trust relationship between the counselee and the counselor. Similarly, coming to workplace counseling can be defined as supporting and helping the employees to overcome his problems at workplace and sail through difficult times in the life. Counseling is required because people suffer from many kind of problems. Now, the basic need for counseling at workplace is because of personal problems such as emotional problems, problems with the family, with friends, etc., which indirectly affect the work of the employees. Apart from these, there are also some problems which are at the workplace such as unrealistic targets, stress, pressure, distorted relationships with the colleagues, with the superiors, with the subordinates, etc., which can lead to conflicts and also problems for the employees. To avoid all these problems, the employee can go for workplace counseling, where a counselor is available. Workplace counseling is a service provided by the organization to the employees. So, counselor is provided where all the problems of the employees can be discussed and can be sorted out for him so that he can work in stress-free environment. Coming to what are the functions of counseling. Basically, what does counseling do, or what are the various functions of counseling? The general objective of counseling is basically to give stress-free environment to the employees, to increase the efficiency of the employees by solving his emotional problems, etc. There are various functions of counseling. If you can see the slide, there are 6 functions of counseling: advice, reassurance, communication, release of emotional tension, clarified thinking and reorientation. First, we talk about advice. Giving advice is one of the main functions of counseling. This requires a counselor to make judgments about the counselee's emotional problems and help in solving the problem. There is a little difficulty here, as it is almost impossible for everybody to understand the other's problems easily. Therefore, giving correct advice sometimes might become a problem. Another problem of this particular function is the person who is taking the advice might not feel it is correct for his situation, or might not accept the advice so easily. Then moving on to the second function, which is reassurance. Counseling can provide employees with reassurance, which is a way of giving them courage to face the problem or confidence that they are pursuing a suitable course of action. Reassurance can be represented by sentences such as everything will be fine, don't worry, whatever you are doing is right, etc. Now, the problem here is when reassurance is given to a person who is already emotionally troubled, like everything will be fine or whatever you are doing is right. When such kind of reassurance is given to an emotionally troubled person, it becomes more difficult. Third function of counseling is communication. Counseling basically helps to improve both upward and downward communication. The counseling process is a confidential aspect. Many of the issues which has to be reached to the superiors can be reached through the counselor by not mentioning the name of the employee, but the concern or the complaint or the issue of the employee can be addressed to the superior officers. Similarly, the management can also understand what are the various policies or rules and regulations which are actually creating problem to their employees. It can also improve downward communication by making the counselor as a mediator and trying to convince the employees about various issues of the management. Next important function of counseling is release of emotional tension. It is an important function of nearly all counseling situations. Sometimes it is also called as emotional catharsis. People tend to release their emotional tensions, frustrations and other problems whenever they have an opportunity to tell someone about them. The counseling history consistently show that whenever the person is bringing out their emotional tensions or frustrations out, they are more relieved and their problems are solved more easily. The next function is clarified thinking. Clarified thinking tends to be a normal result of emotional release, but a skilled counselor can act as a catalyst to bring about clear thinking more quickly. This is basically bringing about clarity in the thinking of the employee. Many a times, most of the problems can be solved by clarifying the thinking of the employees. It may take place later as a result of development during the counseling relationship. The net result of any clarified thinking is that a person is encouraged to accept responsibility for emotional problems and to be more realistic in solving them. The last and the most important of all counseling functions is reorientation. It involves a change in the employee's psychic self through a change in the basic goals and values. Very often it requires a revision of employee's level of aspiration to bring it more in line with actual attainment. It causes people to recognize and accept their own limitations. It is largely a job for professional counselors who know its uses and limitations and who have necessary training. The manager's job is to recognize those in need of reorientation before their needs become severe. This particular function can only be attained when counseling is done by a professional. Therefore, it is important for managers to understand which of the employees need reorientation and then they can be sent to the professionals. Here we are going to discuss three types of counseling: directive counseling, non-directive counseling and cooperative counseling. These three types of counseling are based on how much direction the counselor is giving to his counselee. First one is directive counseling. The counselor will give direction to the employee as to which side or which way he has to move so that he can solve the problem more effectively. The functions of counseling used here in this type of counseling are advice, reassurance and a small extent to clarify thinking also, but reorientation does not take place in this kind of counseling. Now, the second type of counseling is non-directive counseling. Here the employee comes with his own problems, but the counselor does not give him full direction. The employee is allowed to talk and bring about his own solution to his problem. This is similar to client-centered counseling. The functions of counseling which takes place in this type of counseling are basically reassurance, emotional release, clarified thinking. The unique advantage of this type of counseling is the very important aspect of counseling, the reorientation, takes place in this type of counseling. But there are certain limitations to non-directive counseling. Only professionals can do the counseling. Especially it becomes very difficult in an organization when only professionals have to be there. Most of the times managers or superiors also do workplace counseling. So, the one basic problem here is if somebody has to do non-directive counseling, they have to be professionally trained. It is very time consuming, it does not give quick results. So, therefore, most of the times non-directive counseling becomes a problem or becomes cannot be done in the workplace counseling. So, then comes the third type of counseling, which is known as cooperative counseling. The cooperative counseling is not very client centered nor it is very counselor oriented. This is a type of counseling where discussion of the problem is done between the counselor and the employee and solution is taken out by mutual agreement between the counselor and the employee. Therefore, it is known as cooperative counseling. This type of counseling is best for managers and superiors because it does not require a lot of training. The functions of counseling which are used in this type of counseling are basically reassurance, communication, emotional release and clarified thinking. If the manager feels that the employee has to go for reorientation, he can consult any professional counselor and get this kind of counseling done for him. Whatever counseling method or whatever type of counseling method has to be used will definitely depend on the situation and the problem of the employee, and also it depends on who actually is doing the counseling. Therefore, we come to a point where we discuss who actually can do counseling at workplace. Basically, there are three types of people in an organization who can actually do counseling to their employees. One is superiors, specialists and professional counselors. Most of the time, employees spend a lot of time with their colleagues and their superiors. Therefore, superiors are one of the people who have lot of interaction with the employees. Therefore, they also have awareness about what problems the employee is going through personally and also what problems the employee is going through professionally. Therefore, it becomes easy for the specialist to identify the problem and also help the employee to solve their problems. Then coming to most of the time specialists such as physicians in the organization who take care of medical problems of the employees become counselors of the employees, because this is the time where people come to specialists or physicians to get their medical checkup done and in the process also discuss their personal problems. So, therefore, specialists like physicians or sometimes people who deal with loans, human resource executives, all these are people who encounter the personal problems of the employees. Therefore, counseling can take place in this process also. Then the third type of people, professional counselors, the most effective people who can solve the problems of the employee. Many of the organizations appoint their counselors who are professionals to meet their employees and discuss their problems. Not only problems but also to motivate them, to encourage them about the various issues of the employees, professional counselors are used. Then we talk about whoever is a counselor, whether it is superiors, whether it is specialists or it is professional counselors. Every person who is doing the counseling need to have certain skills. Now, if you can see the slide, there are various skills a counselor need to have. First is respect, respect towards their counselee, high esteem for human dignity, recognition of person's freedom and rights, and faith in human potential. All these are essential skills of the counselor. Every counselor should have respect towards their counselee. Then sincerity and authenticity, understanding. Then comes the important skill, which is empathy. Empathy is the ability to communicate, understanding of another person's experience from that person's perspective. Empathy basically helps in understanding other person's point of view in a better way. Then integrity, commitment to being moral in dealing with others. Personal straightforwardness, honesty are very important for a counselor. Resilience, the capacity to work with the client concerns without being personally diminished is very important. Then we talk about next skill, humility, the ability to assess accurately and acknowledge one's own strengths and weaknesses. Then competence, the effective deployment of skills and knowledge needed to do what is required. Fairness, the consistent application of appropriate criteria to inform decisions and actions. Wisdom, possession of sound judgment that informs practice. Courage, the capacity to act in spite of known fears, risks and uncertainty. So, these are basically the skills. No matter whoever is doing the counseling, they need to understand and possess or develop all the skills of counseling. Having appropriate skills are important because it deals with the problems and the issue of the employees. To look at his problems, to understand the problem of the employees and solve the problem of the employees, it is important to have appropriate skills. Then we move on to the ethical principles of counseling. Most of the time managers or superiors do the counseling to their subordinates or other colleagues. Though whatever kind of the counseling can be even in the form of a small advice, or it can be just reassurance, emotional release, whatever can be the function of the counseling, it is very important to maintain the ethical principles of counseling. If you can see the slide, there are various ethical principles of counseling. One is fidelity, honoring the trust placed in the counselor. It is very important to maintain the trust of your counselee. It is important that whatever is spoken to you or told to you as a counselor has to be maintained confidential. Then autonomy, respect for the client's right to be self-governing. The participation of the counselee should be voluntary. Nobody can be forced to get counseling done. Then beneficence, a commitment of promoting the client's well-being. Next one is non-maleficence, a commitment to avoid harm to the client. Justice, the fair and impartial treatment of all clients and the provision of adequate services. Self-respect, fostering the counselor's self-knowledge and care for self. Sometimes in practice, most of the counselors may find difficulty to maintain certain ethical principles. Say for example, during the counseling process, the counselor finds out the employee is suffering from some kind of mental disorder. Now, this cannot be kept confidential. They have to be, his family members or certain medical professionals have to be informed about his mental state. Based on the situation, some principle can be waived, but then it is very important for all the counselors to have these ethical principles of counseling. Though whoever is doing the counseling or whatever method they are using, there are definitely some of the problems, especially at workplace when counseling is being done. The basic problems or hurdles people face in doing the counseling is, first one is lack of trust. Not that every employee should trust the counselor, especially when the counselor is a superior, the employees will not open up about their problems at workplace. Second problem is confidentiality. Similar to trust, the employees always are in a doubt that whatever issues they have discussed with the counselor may not be confidential, may be reached to the superiors, etc. The third constraint is time, effort and resources. Most of the time, superiors may not have enough time to discuss problematic issues of the employees. Some of the organization may not have financial resources and other kind of resources to appoint a professional counselor also. So, basically these are some of the problems which become a hurdle in conducting workplace counseling. Though there might be some problems, many organizations are nowadays using this technique of workplace counseling to solve problems of their employees and provide a stress-free employment for their employees. Now, before introducing or developing a workplace counseling program at any organization, it is important to follow certain steps so that employees can easily understand what is the purpose of this counseling process, how it is going to help them, etc. Now, these steps are, first one is creating awareness, educating the employees about the program, what are the objectives, how it is going to help them, etc. Third one is motivating them to participate in certain programs, and finally understanding what are the results or making the employees aware of what are the outcomes of the program. By following all these steps before starting the counseling program in any organization, it is easy to sustain workplace counseling at the organization.